If you are just joining for the first time, I am Dana Abraham. I'm the founder of Calm the Chaos, which is a program that helps you go from survival mode to thriving. And let me tell you, now is a time that we need to go from survival mode to thriving. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be identifying the flip side of your child's biggest struggle. Now, here's what I mean by that. So often people think that this means that we focus on the good and ignore the bad. And if we do that, then life will just get better. But that is not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that the flip side of your child's biggest struggle is actually their biggest asset. So if you think of the Hulk, one of my favorite scenes from the Marvel movies is in this last movie where they're all sitting at the cafe and Hulk is sitting there and everyone's looking at him all funny and he's got Bruce Banner's face and Hulk's body. And he says, you know what? I finally realized that I was trying to get rid of Hulk, like it was a disease to get rid of. And once I finally embraced the brawn of Hulk and the brain of Bruce, put them together, that is when my true superpower started to shine. And that is our kiddos. It is a difficult concept to really to grasp. And if you haven't already gone to behaviorquiz.com, I highly, highly, highly recommend it because it's almost like me sitting right there with you and asking you questions about your kiddo so that you can tell me just a little bit about your kid. And at the end, I can tell you your child's dominant superpower. So we're going to walk through this today together a little bit here. So the first thing you have to do, step one, is to identify your child's biggest struggle. Now, don't sit here very long because you can stay in that negative place for a really long time. So go ahead in the comments, just let me know what brought you here. What is your child's biggest struggle? Is it defiance? Is it not listening? Is it hitting? Is it aggression? Is it being disrespectful? What challenge brought you here in the first place? I'm going to talk a little bit about Caitlin. Caitlin, when she first joined, her son was struggling with not doing his homework, and he was really struggling with planning and organizing, or you might say executive function skills. And she was able to look at her son, all of this disorganization, as his superpower. The flip side is that he's very logical and efficient. So she allows him to be part of the plan when and how he does his homework. So she got rid of her own thought monsters of doing it the left brain way and just getting it done and out of the way at the same time. So he knows his body, he knows his spiral. So the plan of when, where, and how is very fluid and it changes, but he always efficiently gets it done because she allows him avenues to get himself in the right mindset to tackle the homework. Hitting when frustrated, freaking out if routines change, having trouble accepting advice. So yeah, all of these things are really, really common, right? Of those transitions, being rigid, having a hard time. Now, on the flip side of that, though, what you want to look at is also their special skills, their quirks, their uniqueness. So those of you who have the hitting when frustrated, the flip side of that a lot of times is that they're super passionate, that they stand up for what they believe in. And when we can look at things that way, it makes a huge, huge difference in approaching our kids. What I want to do is with step two, once you've got your biggest struggle, what makes your child super unique? Because what you want to do is you want to combine those together. So if we're looking at this one here, we might have that they hate going out. They're constantly in contact. They don't have any patience. They always cry. They have that goat whine. They're super sensitive. But on the flip side, their uniqueness is they're really empathetic and careful, affectionate, loving, and funny. And so those are things that we want to look. How do those combine together to make your child who they are so that you can recognize what their superpowers are? They're probably not hard-headed, stubborn, bullheaded, rude. They probably are standing up for what they believe in. So how can you lean into that and help them be a part of the solution? So I want you to really just, the big key point here though, guys, is that a superpower is not just your kid's good side. It's a combination of that struggle and that uniqueness, that flip side, the struggle and the weakness, right? And in order to discover your child's superpower, you have to realize that your kid already is unique. Your kid already has that superpower. And because they have that superpower, they also have that struggle. It comes together. This isn't about focusing on the good and ignoring the bad. This is about embracing the struggle and figuring out how to help your child hone that struggle and use it to be their best self. And this allows them to be self-aware and to be able to self-advocate. And when we only focus on the good, it makes our kids think that the bad stuff is bad. And they think that something must be broken or wrong with them. But when we combine them, then we can realize that that is who our kid is, instead of trying to change them. So one of the questions that we got like a combinations of 3 questions from Susan, from Crystal, from Roberta on how to connect with your kids and use the framework when it's really hard. I mean, let's just be honest. What's happening in the world is super, super hard right now. So Susan says, how do you connect with your kids when you're so frustrated, overwhelmed, angry, and fed up? And it's the last thing in the world that you want to do to spend time with them. And here's the thing is you can start, when it's the last thing you want to do to spend time with your kids, but you still want to connect, is you can have that small moment of connection. You can say, hey, you know what? I am spent. I need a moment alone. I'm going to go to my room for a minute and then I'm going to come back. And when I come back, we're going to hang out. Okay. And so go and take your time, take your alone time, get your own energy, go take a shower, go take a walk for a second, or just stand outside in the backyard if you can't take a walk, because I know some of you aren't able to do that right now. Right. And so just take a moment and say, you know, I'm not ready to play right now. It is okay to be honest with your kids and tell them that. Crystal says, I have an ADHD child that thrashes and squeezes when they're frustrated or excited. It can be really hard to connect with someone that physically hurts you, even unintentionally. Absolutely. And that's why in the framework, we talk about being able to swap your own thoughts. When you can swap that idea that they're doing it to you or they're trying to hurt you, then it just makes it easier to connect with them. One of the biggest things is to swap that thought and swap that idea that this is happening intentionally. And then also is to look for those small moments of connection, right? And give your child something else that allows them to thrash or squeeze when they're frustrated. But you're not going to be able to do that in the moment. You're going to have to do that ahead of the moment. You're going to have to connect with your child out of the moment when they're not frustrated and give them things to squeeze, give them things to throw, give them things to push, and all of those things. My son, when he was having his hardest moments, his whole closet had had those like soft foamy boards so that he could just hit the closet because that was his safe place, right? Roberta ask, do you have advice on how families where the caregivers also have chronic or physical health conditions can use the framework, especially the connection part? Both our conditions involve fatigue, low mood, so it's really difficult to be positive and connect with others. Well, I got to tell you, Roberta, I totally understand that, and I empathize with you. Honestly, like right now, I think a lot of us can empathize with you as well. And so what I want to encourage you, one, is we have lots of people who've been through this. I'm thinking of Gwennon, or I'm thinking of Alice, who have their own chronic health problems that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. And they are able to still connect, because what you do is it's help. The big thing is in the framework, we talk about creating a family team where everyone understands each other's triggers, their own likes, their own dislikes, their preferences. And so you would be sharing that with your kids. You would be getting on the same pages with them so they would understand how mom likes to play, how dad likes to play, and how they like to play. And you'd be coming up with a plan together. So maybe your connection is sitting next to each other. I think of my mom on this because she used to get so down in the dumps because she would be so sad that she couldn't connect with her grandkids the way that she had in her head. She had a picture of what connection looked like. She thought it meant going out on the beach, or it meant taking a walk, or it meant playing with them, or going to the bowling alley with them. And she was too fragile to be able to do that. And I would say, Mom, all you got to do is let them sit next to you. Let them read a book next to you. Let them do a puzzle on the floor next to you. You don't have to get down on the floor with them. Just be in the room with them. So often we think that connection is about the playing. I mean, I'll be honest, there are days that I only play with my kids 5-10 minutes a day, but we are truly connected because when we do talk, we have the facial expressions, we have the it's my body language. It's the way that I interact with them. It's the way that I include them in our plans. It's our family team approach all the time that makes them feel connected and valued and heard and like they belong. And so it doesn't require lots of big elaborate games or lots of energetic playing. How do I get my 9-year-old spirited child to stop negotiating with me when I say no? So this is such a common question, and we believe that all behavior is communication. We also believe in empowering our kiddos. And so this one is really hard because when we're talking about struggles to superpowers, if you've got a kiddo so a lot of times as grownups, we come to the table with this idea that kids are supposed to be seen and not heard, or we come to the table with this idea that what I say goes, or asked and answered. And what that tells our kids is that what they say or what they think is not important, even though that's not our intention. It is what they can hear from us. And so what I encourage you to do is flip the script of my child continues to negotiate, won't stop negotiating, to my child really stands up for what he wants or what he believes in. And so if you get ahead of the situation and you're having daily huddles, which is something we teach in our full program, there's actually 7 types of huddles. If you're getting ahead of the problem and you're having daily huddles and your kids know that their voice is important, that their opinions are valued, then they're going to learn a way to be able to talk to you about when they're struggling. So a good example is like my son, who has a really hard time with not knowing a plan. And so he thrives on plans. I mean, thrives on them. And so once he learned that he thrives on plans, he'll come to me and he'll say, well, what about this? And I'll give him an answer. And then he doesn't like it. And he'll say, well, my concern with that is this, and I'm worried that if we do that, this might happen. And so he's learned language and words through our huddles to be able to tell me why the plan we came up with doesn't make him happy. And then we'll continue to problem solve together until we come up with a plan that we both agree on. Okay, what about when they go to school? We got a lot of questions on that. Heather Kelly, Sarah Jensen, and Amanda Millerin are all asking, like, okay, this is all great if I create plans with my kids at home, and home is amazing, but what about when they have to deal with the real world, or when they aren't always included, or when they have problems at the playground? What if like stress is building at school and they lose it, right? At school or at home. I can support them at home, but responses at school are punitive and then the problems get worse. So what do we do, right? Again, our end goal is to teach our kids how to self-advocate in a way that others will want to listen. And we start to think like of the end instead of the step that's right in front of us. And so right now you might be able to support your kid, and you might be able to read what your child is going to do ahead of the moment. And you might be able to see your child's struggles as superpowers. But when they're outside of your care, right, maybe that isn't how the world's going to see it. And so you do have to take a moment and say, okay, what are their strengths? What are their struggles? What are their preferences? And how can I teach my kid to recognize those and be able to speak up for himself when he's in, another situation? Because we want our kids to be able to handle when things don't go their way. But immediately it might not happen. And we see our kids at like 4, 5, 6, and we think that by leaning in and teaching them empathy and teaching them how to speak about their emotions, that we're making them soft. But it's quite the opposite. We're actually teaching them how to problem solve. We're teaching them how to take ownership over their own feelings and their own thoughts and realize that this is part of being a human, right? And so, one of the biggest things that you can do for them is to have these huddles, to work together as a team, to introduce their own sensory preferences, their own triggers and what sets them off, and help them be able to describe that. It reminds me of Caitlin, who was at church one day with her son, and her son said to someone who was trying to get him to stop using a fidget. And he says, look, I know you think I'm being disrespectful because you asked me to put this away and I didn't. And I need you to know that my brain is stressed out right now. And this fidget is helping me listen to what you're teaching me right now. Now, he wasn't rude, he wasn't disrespectful, but he was standing up for his own needs and wants. And that's what we want. That's what we need. How do we communicate the change in our parenting to our kids? Oh, this is such a great question, because I got to warn you, if you're not used to this, if you've done old way parenting, if you've done top down, do as I say, these are the rules, this is how we do things, this is the plan, you're going to follow what I say, this is the punishment, these are your timeouts, here's our reward chart, here's our chore chart. If that's what you're used to and you're flopping to this new way, I'm going to tell you a little hint. The very first thing is, one, you're going to do it slowly. You are not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We see that mistake all the time. We see people come in and they go, "Ooh, I love this new way." And I've done it before too. And you just throw it all out. You throw what you were doing out, and then you start brand new and fresh, and your kids are like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what just happened. And the problem is when you do that, you're already throwing out what's already working, one, and two, you don't know the new way yet. And so you're still struggling and stumbling along to adapt this new way. So it gets really hard. Now, Kat, what's really awesome about communicating this to your kids is that we don't do this to our kids. This isn't something that mom learns, dad learns, and then they impart it on our kids. You'll find a lot of our alumni are here in the comments, and our students come on with their kiddos. Their super kids know me by name. Like, where's Miss Dana? Can we call Miss Dana? Can we talk to Miss Dana? Because it's not something that mom is doing to fix me. It's something that mom is doing to understand me. It's something that mom is doing so we can come together as a family and connect more. How do I convince my 15-year-old that working hard for a diploma is his idea? Oh, Mandy, you're not going to convince some kid that that's their idea if it wasn't their idea. So here's the thing. Oh, this one's a hard one, guys, especially in this day and age. Whew. All right. I'm gonna stand on my little box here. When we were growing up, going to school, getting your diploma, getting your going to a good college, getting a good education was so important. I have a team of 20 people. How many of that team of 20 do you think I have asked them about their diploma or their education? Zero. And I have friends who run multi-million-dollar companies. And guess how many they ask? Zero. Big old goose egg. We don't care about the education. What we care about is their experience. What we care about is what they're passionate about. What we care about is their practice. That's it. My husband, Lemon Pickle, many of you guys have met him and you'll see him more. He did not finish college, but yet he was the CTO, which is Chief Technology Officer at a trading firm at the Board of Trade. He didn't go to college for that. He was self-taught at 14. And so when you have a child who's diagnosed with ODD, when you have a fierce child, a spirited child, or a child with a fierce behavior, spirited behavior, or any child, honestly, you want to lean into their learning style. You want to lean into their interest. And no child can be forced to do what they don't want to do. No child can be forced to do the things that just because someone else thinks it's better for them, right? And so what is it that this 15-year-old is interested in? What is it that is exciting for them? What is it that they could do all day, every day if you gave them the chance? And they might say Fortnite. Okay, great. Then you need to research how you're going to run a Fortnite business. I've done that with my son, my 14-year-old. He's like, Mom, that's fine. If I got to pick, then I'd just be a YouTuber. Okay, great. Let's research how to start a YouTube business, because I got to tell you, they work really hard. They work really, really, really hard, right? And they work a lot of hours, and it's not by chance. They work a lot of hours. And I know because I was a blogger for a long time. And so let them do that research. Let them dig into that. Let them find out what the requirements are. My son now is interested in, well, what do I have to do to be a master Lego builder? Oh, I need an engineering license. Oh, I better start paying attention in math class. I better start making sure that I'm getting my my points in high school. So now he's interested, right? So whatever they're interested in, lean into that. Find out why they're stuck. So often with kids who are diagnosed with ODD, we try to put those boundaries, those strict boundaries, and all we do is push them away even further. I'm not saying you have to let them do whatever they want. I'm saying you have to ask them. You have to include them. You're not going to just pretend to make them think that something is their idea when it's not their idea. This is the day and age that we're in, where our kids, this is the best time in the world to be a unique super kid, to be different, to not fit in a box, because our kids are going to be able to create the world they need and want. I mean, where we're at right now, look at the world right now. We are all being serviced by people online right now. So our jobs and everything are going to be changing really, really fast. How do you handle overwhelm with multiple kids when they're struggling with different things and you feel torn in different directions? Now, I got to tell you, we have lots and lots of students who have multiple kids, big families. We've got Kayleen, who's one of our coaches, who has, I believe, 6 kids. We've got Kim Scabelin with 9. We've got Penny with 12. We've got Kylie with 8. And it always comes down to, well, they're all struggling. Who do I handle? Who do I start with first? And we cover something in our discovery modules about how to choose your focus. And basically, you're picking the one that's going to have the ripple effect on the rest of your family. You're picking the big focus that you can't pick everything. You cannot focus on all the struggles at one time. You have to pick one, and then you can start chipping away afterwards. And I think about Kylie and her little Gracie, who was going up the stairs and getting into her teenager stuff and making a huge mess. And she was trying to focus on something else. She was trying to focus on other behaviors, but then she realized that she was losing her patience. She was getting exhausted by trying to chase after Gracie all the time. So she started focusing on Gracie, and the ripple effect through the whole family was massive. Massive. So that's what you do when you have more than one and you're being torn in different directions. You're going to have to choose a direction. You're going to feel like you went the wrong way at first, and then you'll see it starts to ripple through the family. All right. Question 8. How can we help our son who gets really anxious and shuts down instead of advocating? So Amy says, my son has anxiety and he shuts down versus advocating for himself. He presents really well to other, but he's freaking out inside. How can I help him move forward? So Amy, it's going to come down. One, I want to congratulate you on even knowing that about your son. That is so, so, so powerful. But it's going to come down to helping him identify what it feels like on the inside and what he can do that makes him feel better. We help our kids recognize their internal cues and their sensory preferences, all those things, so that they can find ways to advocate for themselves, even if they don't use words, even if it's just using some sort of visual or some sort of code word. So lean into that and try to find out where his tipping point is on his scale. Whew. I am happy to hop on and answer more questions inside of the Facebook group. My coaches are there, our ambassadors are there, and do not hesitate. If you are stuck on something, we want to get you unstuck. I want you to lean in on us. We've been talking about several things today. We talked about how to swap struggles to superpowers. We talked about how to connect when it's hard, how to negotiate when our kids flip the traditional parenting scripts on us. We talked about how the framework can apply to struggles at school, how to communicate this new way of parenting to our kids, how to show up and show our kids that we're acting in their best interest. We talked about convincing kids that it's their idea, which you can't do, right? You can't convince kids it's their idea. We talked about handling multiple kids, and we talked about helping our kids self-advocate. I would love to know, what has been your biggest takeaway on today's chat? Okay, let's see. Yes. All right. So I just want to remind each and every one of you, if you are here and you are feeling like, oh my goodness, this crazy lady, she keeps popping up in my Facebook feed, and she just keeps talking about these struggles of superpower. Like, she has no idea. Someone actually told me that yesterday when I said, what is one thing that you can be thankful for us being stuck inside? And I got several people who were mad at me, and they said, nothing, absolutely nothing. There's nothing good about this. My husband's losing his job. I have to stay home with my kids. I have so many things on my to-do list. There is nothing good here. And they were upset, and I know why. I know why. It's hard. And it's easy to feel like there's nothing going well. It is easy to feel like this is the worst thing in the world. But it's just as easy to flip that script and to say, you know what? I can do this. And I'm not the only one going through this. I've got an entire army of people going through this exact same thing. And I can lean in, and I can get support, and I can get help. And so I encourage you to do that. Lean in, ask for help, get support, and just know that you are not alone. Your kid's not broken. You're not alone, and we are here to help you. With that, I encourage each and every one of you to go forth and conquer your day. Bye, guys.